We might be living in the new golden age when it comes to Japanese RPGs. There are so many incredible upcoming games that it's going to be tough for me to even fit everything in one video. But of course, we're going to try to see what we can do to get it done. Now, this does not include Inazuma 11 and Fantasy Life, two games that I'm very excited about, but it doesn't necessarily go over all the details there because level 5 isn't going over all the details until later. But I do have one level 5 from their 3 slated games that we are going to talk about in just a bit. But before we get into the full list here, guys, what's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you are someone new, and click that notification bell to get the best Nintendo Switch JRPG content, live streams, and more as soon as they are up. Now, let's go ahead and jump right into it, and we're starting off with the game that's coming out soon as of the time that I'm recording this video, and that is Star Ocean: The Second Story R. And I'm looking forward to this game because it is a bunch of incredible things that you want all wrapped into one. One, you want preservation of old games, right? That's something that everybody wants. So they're bringing back an old PS1 game, taking it, they're retrofitting it, upgrading it, putting it even better, making it better quality, and then they're putting it out on modern systems. And two, it's one of the best Star Ocean games, if not the best Star Ocean game. And 3, there is a demo that you can go out there and play right now, so you can test out the game, see how good it is for yourself. I think it gives you up to 3 hours to play the game, and it is fantastic. It's got a silky smooth combat system. A couple different things to notice here though, guys. Switch version 30 frames per second, PS5 version 60 frames per second, so keep that in mind, or PlayStation PC version, so just keep that in mind. You want the portability, obviously Nintendo Switch. If you want the frame rate and maybe better graphics, you can go with that PlayStation version. Silky smooth gameplay, it has an incredible story, it's got a lot of quality of life and new options added in, and a very distinct look. It looks like a PS1 game, but then it's been completely upgraded in so many different ways. I think that the audio quality is phenomenal, whether you're playing on the Nintendo Switch or the PlayStation. There is some pop-up here and there, at least on the demo when it comes to Switch, but overall I think they did a great job of adapting whatever they're using for this. I'm not sure if they've stated it or not, whether it's like Unreal or whatever they're using for it, but whatever they've done a great job with it. And this gets me excited because maybe we see something like Xenogears come in the future from Square Enix when it comes to these PS1 games that have this 2D, 3D original look to it, at least what they're trying to do back then, and then bringing it to newer systems. So I'm hoping that this is successful despite some issues that people have with the physical edition of the Nintendo Switch version and the whole 8GB cartridge but 4GB download. We'll see what happens, or what that download is, if you can play it off of the standard cartridge, which I did talk about more in depth in my buy now before super rare video, so make sure you guys check that out, link in the description. Now let's go and move on to the next JRPG here, and that is Super Mario RPG. This game is coming out on November 17th, and this is going to be an incredible experience. Now, I don't want to talk too much about it because I can't talk too much about it right now at this point, but going off of what Nintendo has shown and going off of my own memories of playing the game relentlessly on the Super Nintendo, this is a phenomenal remake. Now, it doesn't seem, based off of what we've seen, like there's going to be any story adjustments or crazy different reimagining of things like a la Resident Evil 2 remake, for example. But what it is going to do, it's going to take that original base, what you know and love, and upgrade it and modernize it, and then also sprinkle in some new mechanics into the game for more fun, some different things that didn't happen back then battle wise, or some different things that you can do like the triple team attacks. And there's also, probably based off of what we've seen, quality of life improvements. So what they've done here is really cool. They also introduced a boss rush, or a boss re-challenge mode that's going to be far more difficult, so I do like that. And overall, Super Mario RPG is one of those games that it's timeless, honestly. The writing that was all the way there almost 30 years ago, or 25 years ago plus, or whenever it came out back in the mid-90s, that writing and the quality still holds up to today's day. That is the most incredible thing about Super Mario RPG. It's not going to feel antiquated or outdated or like, man, that joke doesn't make sense anymore. It's still all relevant because of how brilliant the writing was. So I'm very excited to see how people love Super Mario RPG, how people take it this day, because there's a lot of new Mario fans, a lot of new JRPG fans out there, RPG fans that have never played Super Mario RPG, or maybe they started with the Mario and Luigi series when they were kids, and this was the type of like game. This is where it all started. When it comes to Mario and an RPG, it all started right here, and it's still incredibly relevant. It's still really good. So I'm looking forward to playing the game. It's coming out November 17th, so it's very close here. Let's move on to the next game here though, and that is Persona 5 Tactica. This is a game that's not getting a lot of buzz out there when it comes to what Atlas is promoting or even people talking about it, and honestly, I know why. We have Persona 5 Burnout. It is absolutely a thing between Persona 5, the original, between the re-release Persona 5 Royal with added content, not being able to transfer over your save, so you have to restart it, and then the re-releases of that on Xbox and PlayStation 5, not being able to transfer over your save again, and then Persona 5 Strikers, and then Persona 5 other type of games, and then there's like the spin-off mobile game. It's been Persona 5 for the last 6 years. I think the game came out back in 2017. 2016 in Japan, so it's just been so much Persona 5. So I think people are just kind of tired of that cast of characters and constantly rehashing and going back into it. However, what we do have here is a solid tactical RPG experience. I think that it has the makings of a really cool game that you can pick up and play. I think it'll be great to play on the Nintendo Switch, being able to kind of get into some bite-sized skirmishes here and there, really cool tactics and team-up attacks. It's got some incredible music already, very slick visuals. Maybe the art style isn't the greatest, the chibi-fied, not completely super squishy chibi, but still chibi-fied. So I don't think this game is going to set the sales records or anything like that, and I honestly feel that people are going to skip out on it, but it is on Xbox Game Pass, so you can try it out on there, see if you like it, or you can simply just wait for price drops. I mean, it's a full price game when it launches, but I think this is the type of game that's probably going to get discounts very quickly like Persona 5 Strikers did, although that game did sell really well, over 1 million units plus across PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, and PC, with a lot of that, of course, being on PlayStation and Switch. So I do think that Persona 5 Tactica will be a solid game, but people will probably skip out on it. But look out for it. November 17th, same day as Super Mario RPG, so a little bit rough there. Next up is not a JRPG, but I wanted to include it as well, and it's Hogwarts Legacy from Warner Bros. It is a huge open world RPG, and this is going to be one of the most interesting releases to compare when it comes to a massive Western RPG, open world, all that high quality stuff that's in there, right? Like, this was a staggered release. So you have the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series at the beginning of the year, and then in the middle of the year it was the PS4 and Xbox One versions, and then we have the Switch version, and they've taken time to optimize the versions after PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series. And with the PS4 and Xbox One, they did a pretty good job. I mean, obviously it wasn't going to be as good as PS5, but a pretty good job. So I'm a little bit interested to see how they do on the Nintendo Switch. They did release them somewhat recently, and it looked okay. There was definitely mixed reactions to it, and I think that overall the game is probably going to be okay in some areas and then terrible in other areas. When it comes to a lot of enemies on screen or certain areas that are really large, or the quality or image quality based on what you're doing. So it's going to be interesting just to see the Digital Foundry breakdown and what people have to say about a massive Western RPG running on this older hardware with the Nintendo Switch. So that's coming up soon here, November 14th. Next up, we have Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince from Square Enix. This is a weird release, December 1st, but you still get a full while before Christmas, but do not sleep on this game. It's a really cool spin-off side monster battling thing that's going to have some ties to the main line Dragon Quest games, and there's a demo that you can go out there and play. It's on the Nintendo Switch only for right now, but maybe it comes over to PC or PlayStation later, just like Dragon Quest Treasures came over to PC after the Nintendo Switch release. And I think that this game, although the graphics don't look the best, I think that people are going to really enjoy the game for the core mechanics based off of the demo, and I hope that they improve the performance a bit because it was a little bit rough. But I think that in Japan, the game is going to sell incredibly well. I think it's going to have a good launch. It's more popular than what Dragon Quest Treasures was. That was a spin-off from Dragon Quest XI, which people love. Dragon Quest XI, obviously one of the best selling Dragon Quest games, one of the best reviewed Dragon Quest games. But people were kind of burnt out just a little bit on the Dragon Quest XI. Dragon Quest Monsters is a brand new entry with brand new characters in an area and a time where Dragon Quest Monsters is still incredibly popular. So Japan, I think it's going to be large when it comes to the launch. We'll see how it does here in the West overall, but expect this game to do pretty well when it comes to the Japanese sales out there. And I'm looking forward to seeing how players react to it here in the West too, with all the different combat and upgrades and different additions that they've done to the mix of Dragon Quest Monsters. Next up is DECAPOLICE from Level 5, and Level 5, very interesting company. They are stating now at this point that they will have more information on their game releases in November. So hopefully DECAPOLICE is one of those games that gets announced for this year. If it's a late December or mid-December title, I think it could work. It looks like DECAPOLICE is pretty much ready to go, and they're kind of just like sitting on it. They revamped the combat system in the game. If you look at the first trailer back in February at the Nintendo Direct, then you look at the most recent gameplay footage from the Tokyo Game Show, they've completely changed how that works. Now, and I did a whole video on that, so if you want to see the exact details and changes and the walkthrough, check that out. But this is definitely one of the most intriguing games from the puzzle aspect, the detective style aspect, the futuristic aspect of it as well, plus the combat. The combat seems really intricate and in-depth and a lot of fun, something very different, and it just looks drop dead gorgeous when it comes to the graphics and the visual style on the PlayStation 5. So it really looks like it's going to be a great game, and I'm looking forward to covering it, and I'm just hoping, maybe we get a December release for this game. I think it would be cool to kind of sneak in there at the very end of the year. But even if it's early next year sometime, that's fine as well. But what I do know is that the game is pretty much done or very close to being done at this point. And it seems like Level 5 is just kind of waiting and seeing when to strike when it comes to all of their games with Inazuma 11, Fantasy Life, and of course DECAPOLICE. Next up, let's go to move on to 2024, shall we? We've got Granblue Fantasy Relink, an incredible action JRPG from Games. Very interesting development path for this game. Twisting, turning, winding all over the place from Platinum Games to Games, then the delays. Every single year for like the past 3 years, they've shown off this game and it's looked good every single time. I've looked at it and said, okay, this looks really good. Heck, this even looks better than what we saw with Tales of Arise a number of years ago. This looks better than that when it comes to the combat, when it comes to some of the fidelity and the visuals and what I think you can do with the different characters. So I am excited to see the game finally come into fruition here, February 1st, 2024. Of course, I'll be copping that PlayStation 5 version of the game, but what looks really intriguing is what they're doing with some of the co-op features, the co-op online optional, some of the stuff that you can get, loot that you can collect as well, but then also the content in general. Looks like it's going to be a very meaty, packed game full of content and various different levels and side quests and cool equipment and armor. So everything that they've showed here has looked really good, and I think this game is going to be polished beyond belief, because how long have they been developing it? I mean, I don't think it's going to launch where it's not polished, where it's not good or anything like that. I think it's going to launch really good. It's been a long time for this game, but I'm excited to kind of get my hands on it and to be able to play it. This is by far the craziest month for RPGs that I've ever seen in the time that I've been covering RPGs, at least. So let's get into more of that craziness, and that is Persona 3 Reload from Atlas, February 2nd. So we've got a 1-2 punch of JRPG goodness. Granblue Fantasy Relink hits you first, and then Persona 3 Reload finishes you off with the awesomeness. And this game is going to be really good. They've been showing off more trailers of it. It's coming out February 2nd, and the graphics overhaul looks really good. The combat seems fun. The combat seems like they've tweaked a number of things, which I know that they talked about a bit, but they've tweaked some things here and there. So it's not just a one-to-one remake of of the game. They've added in some extra content. They've removed some content when it comes down to it. But overall, it still looks like a phenomenal experience. It's Persona 3, but it's Persona 3 on modern platforms, and it just shines. I think that the combat system, the music, everything just kind of comes together with Persona games, especially from Persona 3 and up, whether it's Persona 3, Persona 4, Persona 5. Persona always just has this way to kind of grab a hold of you. I'm interested to see exactly how they do all of the social links and how it's been upgraded, quality of life features. I know they've shown a little bit, but they haven't shown too much of that. They've been showing off individual profiles, certain characters, showing off the new graphics and the music and some of the new options and everything, which look great, by the way. Very clean, smooth look to the game. Looks like it's running incredible as well. So I'm interested to see how the quality of life features and how the combat plays into the full amount of the game. There's some really tedious stuff that's in Persona 3, Persona 3 FES, Persona 3 Portable, all that. So I'm wondering to see how they actually balance out all that stuff over the course of the whole game to kind of make it a bit more streamlined, but at the same time not lose its essence or its flavor from how the game was. So we'll see how that works out for Persona 3 Reload on February 2nd. Next up is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This is a huge one. It is a direct follow-up to Final Fantasy VII Remake, where everything has been flipped on its head. It's coming out February 29th. It's PS5 only, and they're leveraging the PlayStation 5 in order to get the best performance possible and to upgrade everything from what we saw from Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, I will say this. The graphics in the game aren't as impressive as when I first saw Final Fantasy VII Remake, but that's because it was the first time that we saw Cloud in that modern look and everything that wasn't like a movie or something like that, or like a fan-made thing. It was actually Square Enix bringing Cloud back and looking incredible. And I think that they took that base of the game, and I don't know how much more they improved the graphics from there, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is that this game is actually a full content-packed game with tons of different things to do and more JRPG elements that we needed. We're seeing the dual attacks, right? We're seeing the playable characters. We're seeing the open structure. We're seeing the mini games. We're seeing all these different things that Final Fantasy has been known for and has been one of the best at. So the fact that that's finally happening here with Final Fantasy in the modern age and not having some weird stuff that has been going on for quite some time with Final Fantasy is really good to see, and the game just looks incredible. They have a bunch of new gameplay that's went up, and everything just looks solid so far. So I'm looking forward to having different levels of traversal. I'm looking forward to having a bunch of different characters to use. I'm looking forward to seeing the open structure and not having the limitations that we saw with Final Fantasy VII Remake and previous Final Fantasy games. So that is going to be a great experience on PlayStation 5, February 29th. Can't wait for it. Next up is a game that's kind of flying under the radar, but then not at the same time when it comes to fans of this style, and that is Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes, Rabbit and Bear Studios 505 Games. This game was actually announced, the official release date, at least after the delay, of April 23rd at the Nintendo Direct. So it's coming to pretty much everything. It's pretty much the spiritual successor to that, even though the remasters of those games are coming. Like, this is like the next thing. It's from the developers who made that game, classic from Konami and everything. It's from them, but it's their game. And what I like about it is the dynamic camera angles, how it presents the battle. Almost kind of reminds me of Golden Sun at times, but you have a ton of different characters that you can recruit. So it's kind of like Shining Force or something like that, or Final Fantasy Tactics, or some of these games that we've seen before where you can have these huge rosters, but at the same time you have this dynamic battles where you have to really customize your characters and customize who you have on your team in order to get the best performance and in order to beat all of the side quests and do all the secret bosses and all this cool stuff that you can do in a lot of these JRPGs. So that's what gets me excited for this game. I think that it's going to be a completely new experience, very fun experience, classic old school, but at the same time the developers respect the source material because they were there. They're the ones who made that. They grew up in that era, and you can tell that it is going to have that essence and that flair to it. So I'm looking forward to Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes. The music that we've heard so far from some of the gameplay clips and stuff has been exquisite. So it looks like this game is finally shaping up here. Just a bit more to go before we kind of get into the home stretch of the game, and I'm looking forward to playing it. I think it's going to be a solid experience. Now, the last game that I'm going to talk about here, and trust me, there's going to be more games that come up, but the last game will be Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. Now, there's some news with this game. I do want to talk about it a bit more because Nintendo just said 2024 on the Nintendo Switch, right? There's been speculation based off of some videos, Game Explain, and other places that have looked at some of the button combinations and seen, hey, this could be for the next Switch because of the button prompts that are in the trailers and in the footage that we've seen so far, which I do think that's absolutely possible, that there will be a Nintendo Switch 2 version of the game with the Famicom button style or button layout or button colors. So there is that possibility, and that's awesome. I think that Nintendo getting their games ready for that, for it to be played on the next system for backwards compatibility, is a great thing. Everybody likes to see that, right? So that's awesome. But I think that there's even more to this because Nintendo already has this game rated in certain countries, so it's already rated and done. Essentially, when the game is rated, that means it's content complete, it's feature complete. Everything is pretty much done with the game. They have wrapped up what they need to wrap up, and they have submitted it in for the ratings board. So the fact that it's already been rated shows that it is done, and it could be sooner. Now, Nintendo has been known to sit on games. They had like New Super Mario Bros., I think a Yoshi Switch game, and other titles pretty much already done. Fire Emblem Engage was done. There is a rumored Fire Emblem 4 remake pretty much done, just sitting there, just waiting for Nintendo to put the release date. We saw with Xenoblade Chronicles 3 that they moved the release date up a number of months. So the game was done, and we heard that the game was pretty much done as of the end of 2022, and it maybe could have launched then. And then when the game launches, obviously there's like no day one patches or anything big needed. It runs fine and looks good. Everything's fine there. So Nintendo, when it comes to the back or middle half of their lineup for certain games, have been done for a while, and with RPGs in general, with some of the games that I talked about. So Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door could come sooner than expected. That could be a early first half of the year, which people expected it based off of when they dated Luigi's Mansion to the HD remaster. That was summer, so people thought automatically that it's going to be after that, which it still could be. But based off of this rating here, we could get it before then. Nintendo does have a number of games for the early 2024 with Princess Peach Showtime and a few other games, but don't be surprised if Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door comes out a bit sooner than you would have expected in 2024. But those are 10 big JRPGs, exciting upcoming titles for you guys to check out soon on whatever platform that you own. Let me know what you're most excited for when it comes to these JRPGs and these RPG titles. I love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out our other JRPG and RPG videos right here on screen. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.